Hello, my fellow readers. I, Dark Symphony 777, with another fan fiction review. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the video and any future fan fictions you want me to read or review. And as always, these are my opinions. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world. I'll try to be more spazzy and less nervous. Haha! But then again, I have reasons to be nervous because the story I'm reviewing is kind of trash. So, the story I'm reviewing is the original Big O Season 3 by the ACT of Paradigm. God, this is gonna be so bad. Oh, I'm not nervous. I'm more nervous. How bad am I gonna? How much bad stuff I'm gonna be saying? Rather than actually nervous. It's a Big O story. It was actually written all the way back in like November of 2003, like right after season 2 of Big O ended, and he actually made it like each chapter was like a week after, which I kind of liked. I liked the idea. I said, hey, I created a actual episode in a week. You didn't get it. So let's start the fan fiction. Oh, this is gonna be bad. So God dang, my ass hurts. My ass actually hurts a little bit from sitting on this chair. I need to get a new chair. That's it. I'm determined. I need to get a new chair. So this fan fiction actually starts right at the end of episode 26 of Big O, where Big Venus is slowly erasing the world and kind of resetting it. Big O was kind of very vague in that regard. Big O was kind of like one of those stories that you can't really describe unless you get like really technical, or unless you're like right next to them watching episode and slowly describing it. Say, hey, this is why this happens. This is why this happens. Got it. Good. And it basically, Roger convinces Angel not to erase the world, so she got like, alright, fine. And then she cries, and then she goes to live with Roger, and Roger and Dorothy hook up. I don't know where. Okay, kind of abrupt with them hooking up. I mean, that's fine. It's kind of obvious that they were going to hook up, but it's tomato sort of deal. So we have 13 chapters, each one a different episode. Whoo! And all of them are kind of mediocre, to be honest. They have a solidified love connect story. Not connect story. When I say connect story, they have a solid plot line. Basically, first off, it starts off as Roger cheering up Angel, and then the whole shenanigans with Beck. Go read the last Big O story. Kind of talks about that, which was like chapter 2 and 3. Let's see. Oh, chapters 2, 3, and 4, like those 3 chapters. And after that, it's just basically a whole bunch of nonsense involving Mega Juice going crazy and the whole fluctuation of reality. This is one of those stories that don't really make a lot of sense, even in the context of its own story. I mean, I get some of it, like the whole some of it, like with Dorothy kind of having like all these androids now running around to help them with the Mega Juice, fine. A reality canon, fine. But the whole reality kind of aspect of it is kind of weird, especially with Gordon Rosewater. That absolutely makes no sense. Not to mention, and finally, in terms of the plot, they completely ruined Schwarzwald. If you ever saw Big O, you probably know who Schwarzwald is. Michael Seabach. God dang. He was the best part of Big O. I really loved any scene he came on. He was pretty much just stole the show no matter how hard he tried. And why do I have something in my fingers? He constantly stole the show from Roger, from Dorothy, from Datsun, from Angel, from everyone. He was just, oh my god, he was so awesome. Sorry, I just really like Schwarzwald. So going back to the beginning, let's just kind of talk about the author's note the author has, specifically one specific sentence. I tried to resolve as many mysteries and loose ends from the series as possible while providing a rip-roaring giant robot battle in every episode. I have also added new monsters, weapons, mysteries, villains, sexy androids, and romance. There's a problem with that. The director of Big O, when he was making it, he openly admitted that everything was supposed to be as open-ended as possible, so that way the whole show can kind of be left up to interpretation. That was the whole point of the show. That was why the plot was done the way it did. By resolving everything and closing literally everything in sort of like a weird half-ass way, you kind of make the story weaker while also closing it off, because if you ever saw any of the episodes of Big O, you can literally watch any of the episodes besides Season 1 and Season 2 in any order. The only exemptions being the very first episode, episode 1, and episode 26. You gotta have to watch episode 1 first, and you gotta watch episode 26 last. Those two episodes are the only exceptions. And even then, you can kind of go the whole... And even then, you could probably just watch episode 26 and then watch episode 1 because of how 26 kind of ends really weird and like a Gainax sort of ending. With the first scene of the first episode kind of replaying over. By, tying up all these mysteries would be fine if they were done well. I mean, if you're gonna continue a series, then you have to not only tie up certain things, but also leave things open, especially with a show like Big O, where everything was left open to interpretation. There was so much stuff going on in the background with Roger, with Dorothy, with Angel, with Schwartzwell, whenever he was involved. And so closing all this stuff up, like, not even in a good way. The problem with that is he rushes through these mysteries instead of letting them build up and play out naturally. He tries to get all of them in a chapter long episode in quotation marks, which kind of becomes a double-edged sword. Yes, you kind of solve the things. The problem is you go around them. They're not exactly the way it makes sense. Like, for example, okay, in one episode of Big O, Alan Gabriel shows up with, is controlling Big Duo, and then Michael Seabach shows up as, like, floating in midair and said, this Mega Deuce is not for you! And then, Big Duo kind of swallows up Alan Gabriel, and at the end of the story, Seabach just shows up out of nowhere saying, hey, I'm alive. And I'm like, wait. And this is actually my reaction to Michael Seabach. It's like, no, why? Because I really did not. I think that was the biggest slap in the face as someone who is a fan of Big O, of using Schwartzwell like that, him showing up. Not acting like Schwartzwell not barely acting like Schwartzwell at all, and then just completely out of focus for like one scene. It's like, hey, I'm here, boom, dead. That was a big slap in the face. But overall, I think the only good part about the stories is the plot. I think the overall arching plot with mind control and the connections between the Dominuses, the Megadeuces, and the androids was at least relatively well done. Nothing spectacular, but it was enough that I at least kind of liked the plot. There are some chapters that I kind of like more than others. Let me see a chapter. Underground Error, which introduced Big Ramses. I thought it's okay. That was probably the best chapter. I didn't in terms of the battle robots. I don't like how the author handled the battle robots because the author decided to turn them into Gundams for some reason. Like, they're constantly moving and there's like all these missiles and stuff like that. They would be fine if not for the fact these are mega deuces, which were designed to be slow. They were not designed to be like, oh, here's in like a really fast fight. There's actually a part in the story where there's two robots fighting and they start swinging each other like, no. You can't really, no. In the text of that show, you can't really do that. All this would get a pass if not for the fact the author is basically trying to uphold the continuity. Like if the author was saying, hey, this is the original story, just set in the Big O universe, that would be fine. I wouldn't be complaining about the plot or any of the other stuff that's gonna happen in this review. But the author claimed that this was gonna follow continuity issues. This was gonna follow everything starting from chapter 1 to chapter 26. Well, acts, my bad. And continue off from there. That would be fine if not for... Again, it's more an issue of continuing the story and trying to continue it like Big O and then not handling it like Big O. But some of the plots, the overarching plot is not bad. The part with the zombies, not bad. The whole thing with Beck, that one was better. That one was done better in the side story involving Beck's side of the story of those 3 chapters. Just read. Honestly, just skip chapters 2, 3, and 4, and just read them. And just read Beck's story. That will handle that one better. And that's it with the plot. The bad guy, yeah, that's it with the plot. Characters. Roger's boring, or Dorothy's boring. Angel is... Dadson's boring. Schwartzwald is completely useless. Why the... Again, going back to Schwartzwald, I really did not like the fact how the author handled Schwartzwald of just showing up, throwing a fit, leaving, and then dying. I just think you didn't have to use him. Especially since Galaxy's version of how they've reintroduced Schwartzwald in the 9 Muses of Death, I did a review on that story, was handled much better. It was much more impactful. It had a lot of more meaning. If you actually, through rereads, you can actually kind of tell that it was hinting towards Schwartzwald. It was very, very vague and everything. But, it was handling it pretty well. This version of Schwartzwald just completely showed up at the penultimate chapter and then disappeared. Poof. And then showed up, then ran into Gordon. That's another thing I didn't like about the handling of Gordon Rosewater. I didn't really like Gordon Rosewater because he was just a blatant Deus Ex Machina. Like, from the very moment he was introduced, it was pretty obvious he was going to be used in some way down the line. He's a Chekhov's gun, so to speak. He was just there to say, oh, this is going to happen. Whoop. And be expendable. There was no reason for Gordon to be involved in the story in a physical sense, appearing in their dreams. Fine, I can accept that, so to speak, because of how he behaved, how he worked in the context of the show. I can get that, but him randomly showing up in the show, saying, "Hey, I'm dead, I'm alive again," and then operating a Leviathan, then turning a mannequin into his wife. I don't even want to question how that works. And then sacrificing himself. It just makes no sense. It just reminds me too much of a lot of interpretations of Tyrant Celestia. It just kind of reminds me of that. Like, Gordon is this indomitable chess master that always seems to win no matter what happens. It kind of takes the fun away because we all know, because Gordon already knows, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Oh, we pretty much know we're going to win. It takes a lot of the fun out of reading a thrilling story if it's going so obviously gonna win. But the best parts of the most climactic parts are when we get so hooked in the story we don't know if the author might pull something out of nowhere and have the villain win. That would be fine. In this case, If not for the fact Gordon did it so obviously that the season was going to end with Big Lazarus's defeat. Everything was going to be hunky dory with with new Megaduces and new androids running around, and he made it so obvious that all this was going to happen, which killed a lot of the story. It's like it started off good, and then as I read it, I just completely lost interest over the course of the story, and then just the death knell was Seabach showing up. I mean, come on. You didn't show him. You didn't have him introduced as completely over the top. You did foreshadow him with like Big Duo showing up. That's fine. But he just didn't. Nobody acts like they do. So continue on. So I said Roger and Dorothy are boring. Angel was Seabach was disastrous. Gordon was kind of unneeded at the end, or he could have just said different things. Dan Dowson, boring. Beck and Dory. I actually like Beck and Dory. I think they were probably the only really good written characters. So to speak, compared to everyone else being like very bad or very boring, then there's not much competition. Tony introduced, boring. Will and Emily, boring. Norman, boring. The villain had a lot of intrigue. I think that was the only reason why I continued reading past the halfway point, because I was like, okay, what's the author going to do with the villain? Only to turn the villain into a wannabe Alex Rosewater. I mean, I'm guessing the old Dominus was Alex Rosewater. I think we should have had at least some confirmation that who the old Dominus was. No, it just referred to the guy as the old Dominus. The new Dominus. What was the new Dominus's name? It was Android. Here it is. Let's see. Come on, load. Okay. Let's see. Where was? Where was it? No. Oh, Jack Jones. That's the name of the new Dominus. Boring. Literally every single character except for Beck and Dory are boring. Boy. And so we have a bunch of boring characters. We have 1/3 of boring characters, 1/3 badly written characters, and then we have last third being just Dory and Beck being the only decently written and maybe Angel being decently characters. Oh, I forgot. Sorensen, boring. All the new characters feel like knockoff versions of previous other characters, like Tony being kind of a knockoff of Beck, Will being a knockoff of Roger, Emily being a knockoff of Emily, Sorensen being a knockoff of Datsun, the new Megaduce kind of being and the old Megaduce kind of being a knockoff of Alex Rosewater. It's just there was nothing to differentiate all the characters. And that leads into the pacing. I had no problem with the pacing. I think certain parts could have been done a little slower, but nothing really bad. No, my complaint in this section is the writing. The story is very, very dialogue heavy, like extremely dialogue heavy. And that kind of causes a problem in a story that you're continuing a story that doesn't really need a lot of dialogue. That's like making a dialogue-only story about Samurai Jack, when the whole show is about showing, not telling. Being very dialogue-heavy kind of ruins the experience. Again, this goes back to the argument that if this was an original story, just completely separate from Big O, fine, you can be dialogue heavy, but labeling it as continuing the story and not adhering to how the story works in the show kind of creates a bad moment, bad dichotomy when you have what? Put down your bed. That's why I don't want to. That's why I want to move out. So anyway, it creates a dichotomy of wanting to try and continue the story, but at the same time, completely not looking like nor feeling like an actual season of Big O. And that's the biggest shame, because the story had a lot of good ideas. It's just the writing style and the set and the structure of the entire story undermines all those good ideas by not making it feel like Big O. It's a really big shame. Would I recommend the story? If it wasn't for the fact that this was a season 3 quotation marks, I would hesitantly recommend it. I wouldn't really be a big fan of it, but I would hesitantly recommend. Oh, grammar. I completely passed about grammar. Grammar is fine. Nothing wrong with the grammar. I would be anyway. Back to what I recommended. I would be fine, but I would hesitate. I would be hesitant to do it, but I would still do it by labeling this as a season 3 with all the problems the story has with the characters, with the sentence structure, with being very dialogue heavy, with the completely ruining Schwartzwald's character, to completely overemphasizing Gordon Rosewater's ideals and the whole memory thing. Also, unnecessary flashbacks. Like, why, like, the second half of the story has, like, a couple flashbacks that are completely unneeded to the story. Fine, if you wanted to kind of talk about, instance, kind of tying everything together using the flashbacks, fine. But you don't. It's just unnecessary fluff between a past version of Roger and Dorothy, which are completely unneeded unless you were going to talk about that. Favorite part? Favorite part? I don't have a favorite part. Sorry, everything's just completely bland and uninteresting in this story. I would want to praise the story in some way, shape, or form, but I can't because nothing stands out. It's completely antithetical to everything that Big O stands for. Again, if this was an original story completely removed from the canon, fine. But the author really shot himself or herself in the foot by labeling this as a continuation of the series. And this is the second edition. Wow. What would I change? So much stuff. I wouldn't even know where to start. First off, fix the robot fights. Make it less dialogue heavy. Make each chapter its own story. Like, completely erase the original Big O Season 3. Make each chapter its own separate story, so that way we can make it open. And that's probably the biggest thing. Make each and every chapter open-ended. So that way you can go in and read any different type of story you want in any way you want and still kind of get the whole experience, because nothing really matters in the whole thing. That's fine. Fix Roger and Dorothy. Kind of make them more mysterious, and make it feel like more like. At least make Roger act more like Roger. And give them more introspecting thoughts. Give a lot of the characters kind of more time in their thought to enter their minds and kind of talk about what they see and stuff like that. If you want to keep the robot battles as they are, fine. Sure, they don't seem like Big O, but they're not incredibly damaging to the story. to the fact there was an episode where Big Duo kind of carried Big O like halfway across paradigm, so it's like, just Big O swinging a camera around. It's not really a big deal. I have nothing wrong. I don't. Changing the story would seem like a lot of work. Like, you completely have to restructure the story. I think I said everything that needs to be said about fixing the story. This is one of those stories that there's so much wrong with it that it'd be better just to make a video just talking about what's wrong with the story rather than actually fixing it. And yeah, that's about it. So that's my review on the original Big O Season 3. Before I end it, I would like to say, if you want to see an actual season, fan-made Season 3 on FanFiction.net, go read Galaxy Stories. His stories, I may not like every single one of Galaxy Stories, night and day, but they were better. They were more consistent with how the story works. They were more coherent to the universe around it. It felt more like actual episodes of the show. The characters were written better. Sure, there were some questionable choices, like turning Jason Beck into Heath Ledger's Joker. I did not like that. I thought that was completely stupid and leaning too much on the Batman references. But, at least that story had the Gigadoos, which was at least a nice touch. And that's really all I have to say about this specific review. So this has been Dark 7777, and cut.